Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me again. This is your host, ID Jester. We are finally going to finish up the routing process and our comprehensive look at what you should be thinking about when you are routing your units. Hopefully we can get this last little part done in this episode and move on to some more rules in the ASL rulebook in about 15 minutes. So, last episode, hopefully you've been able to watch, we talked about using our smarts and understanding what all the different rules mean and how they affect the different phases and everything. So we're going to continue that process here. We're going to look at some more examples over here on the east side of the board. In this case, we're just going to disregard everything from Q over, just ignore that those units are there. That was a different example. So again, I'm going to just remove the DM counters. Normally you would not do this, of course, if you're playing face-to-face or on Vessel. You would keep the DM counters there, but I think just for ease of what's going on in this scenario so everybody can see everything, I'm just going to remove the DM counters so we can see what's going on visually, quickly, and easily. So we are continuing the German player's routes here in the route phase. Since he is attacker, he is going to do his routing first. Let's look at, what is this, X2. We can look at X2 here. We can see we have a broken unit here. Normally it would have a DM counter on it. And of course you wouldn't take those DM counters off, except for, since I'm doing this video, we are. It would have to route away. It is, no matter where it goes from its current location, it will end up adjacent to the same unit it just moved. So this unit will be eliminated for failure to route. That was quick and easy. We can see that. This unit here in AA5, let's see what he can do. His closest building or wood hexes are BB4 and Z5, which are, actually Z5 is the closest one, but he can ignore that because it's not any farther away from these units than his current hex. So he could look at BB4, which he could ignore as well because it's not any farther away from these units. So you could look for some more terrain to go to, which would probably be down here in EE7. But as the German player is looking around, he realizes no matter where he goes, he is going to be moving into a location that is going to lessen the distance between it and a known enemy. Well, let's see. Is that true? 1, 2, 3. Yes, he does. Well, let's check some line of sight here. I hadn't thought about this. Let's see. Does he? Nope. Okay, he doesn't see that unit. So he does. This is not a known enemy unit. He is 1, 2 away. He can move into this hex here, which is 2 away. Yes, actually, this unit can survive after all. I hadn't realized that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Alright, this unit is going to make a mad dash. Excellent. He is going to spend movement factors, and he is going to move away from all these units, but not move any closer. Because this American player is out of light, it is not out of sight, it is not a known enemy at this point. So he can move into this hex right here for 1 movement factor. Let's see if the American player, nope, he's not going to be able to see him there, and he's not going to be able to see him there either. Okay, well, so he spent 1 movement factor to move into that hex. He spends another movement factor to move into this hex. He spends 2 more movement factors to move into that hex. So we have to think about, okay, I have ended in my destination hex, but I have adjacent wood or building hexes that I could move into. Do I want to do that or not? Well, the German player should have already realized that he is trying to get all of his units together with his leader that's going to possibly rally everyone. And where all these broken units are going to end up, this is where this unit should also end up. Well, let's move this guy back for just a second and take into consideration, because the German player is advanced, he knows that he's got a good order leader here. He can't, let's see here, boom, he's 1, 2, 3 away, 3 away, 2 away. Yeah, that's not going to work. So the best the German player can get to is 1, 2, 3, he could end up in Y8, which I think is probably where, or let's see, Z7. Is Z7 going to be workable? Boom. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Nope. All right. So the German player, if he's smart, will realize that if he brings this unit down here, spending his movement factors into that hex, into that hex, into that hex, and then stops, that is not going to be advantageous for him. The reason for that, again, is because these other units, he'd like to get everybody into the same hex. Well, this unit here, when it goes to route, it is currently 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from this known enemy unit. If he moves into that hex, he is still 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. If he moves into this hex, how many spaces away is he? 1, 2, 3. Can't do it. So he's not going to be able to move into that hex. So the best that this German player can do is to move this unit down into Y8 would be his target hex, should be his target hex for all of these routing units. So it doesn't matter which units he moves in what order, but he should move them all into Y8 because they can all move into Y8. Again, this unit can't actually see anybody up there because the line of sight is blocked because just to the edge of that wood. So luckily for the German player, so you can spend one movement factor to move in there, one more movement factor to move in there, 2 movement factors to move in there for 4, and 2 more movement factors to move into that hex for a total of 6. He now sees this enemy unit, and he knows that it's there, but since he's not adjacent to it, he's not in an open hex, he does not need to route away from it. And he can actually route towards this place, this unit, because it was a unknown enemy unit. So at that point, German player can then, based upon who knows who, he doesn't know about this unit, he can actually move into that hex there for 2 movement points, or 2 movement factors, sorry. And again, he still doesn't know about this unit, so he can move into there for 2 more movement factors. Even though he now has line of sight to this enemy unit, he does not need to route away because he's not adjacent, he's not in an open hex, and he's good to go. So he would finish his route. And of course, lastly, we have this unit in Y5 who doesn't know about this enemy unit down here, so we can route into that hex for how many movement factors? 2 movement factors. And then, of course, he can continue into these woods. He would have to declare this as his destination hex, obviously. And then once he enters there, because we have an adjacent wood or building hex, he can move into that space. Of course, you still have to follow all the rules of routing, not moving towards closer towards a known enemy unit, etc., etc. And then, of course, we're going to use the same trick we learned from last episode, where in the next phase, the advanced phase, the German player will then advance his leader into that hex, so that way, during the next rally phase coming up, he'll be able to try to rally all of those units and hopefully get them to come back into the fold unbroken. Let's look at some more situations we got going on here. We have a situation in W5 where we have a broken unit. It is with a nice leader, though, a 9-1 leader. It is adjacent to a American squad here in what is this? X4, I guess it is. So he is going to have to route away. So this gives the Germans some ample opportunity to think about what he wants to do. He could just, well, he's got several different things. I'm going to go ahead and remove this DM counter. Of course, remember, all these broken units would have DM counters on them. So let's look at the different options he's got. He could just low crawl away. So he wouldn't be adjacent to any enemy units. He wouldn't get interdicted. And that's an option for him. His second option is to route to the closest nearest building and or wood hexes, which are Y6, W3, and U4. We obviously can see that W3 and Y6 are not valid target hexes because he would be moving closer, and in fact he would be moving adjacent to this unit in W4, I'm sorry, X4, and if he moves into another adjacent hex adjacent to the same unit, he would be eliminated for failure to route. So he's not going to do that. So the next thing he has to think about is U4. If he moves into U4, does that get him anything? Well, it could, because the German player also sees up here in W3, he's got a broken unit. Of course, it would have a DM counter on it, which is with the leader. So we learned that we can do several things. We could route this unit into U4. We could low crawl it, in fact, because it's just moving adjacent. But don't forget that a leader that's with a broken unit can route with that unit, and even though it's not DM. So I will put a DM counter on this just to show you. This would be the way it would be stacked. You would have your leader on top, you would have your DM counter, and then of course you would have your broken unit. He could go with that unit. He would not have to DM himself. He would not have to break himself. He can just travel with that unit as it's broken into this hex right there. So this makes this hex even more advantageous for the German player, because now if he gets this unit up there, he will of course have a unit in the hex that with an unbroken leader, so that he can rally that unit. So he is going to go ahead and do this, but if he moves into this hex, we have to think about interdiction. Let's look at our map situation here. Fortunately for the German player, when he's in this hex U4, he is going to receive no interdiction, because the enemy cannot target him without taking a TEM modifier, which would nullify the -1 FFMO. And again, I'm talking about stuff we haven't covered yet in the rules, but if you're familiar with ASL, you should know that FFMO, move in the open, he would not receive that because of this heads here, and so he can move into that hex without being interdicted for one movement factor, and then of course move into that hex for the final two movement factors. And of course we would then be able to rally those units in that hex, and because we moved the leader with that broken unit, that was quite good for the German player. So we got a few more situations here. Last but not least, the German player's finally winding down his turn. He's got U2 to worry about, and he's got S2 to worry about. If we look at these hexes, yep, of course, again, they would have DM counters on them, but I've just removed them for the ease of understanding what's going on here. This unit is in a building hex, so yep, it does not need to route. It can just stay right there. It doesn't have to worry about anything. But should it? The German player thinks, and well, because he's so advanced and everything, he knows he's got to get his units in with leaders. So if the leader during the advance phase advances, he can only advance into that hex, or this hex, or another adjacent hex. He can't advance all the way over to him, so he's not going to be able to rally this unit. So is there a better proposition for this unit? Well, of course, we could route this guy up into this hex right there. We need to check a line of sight thing here. Yep, they see each other. So this is a known enemy unit. So he cannot get any closer to this known enemy unit. Let me take this back here for just a second. So this unit knows this guy, so the German player knows that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't get any closer than 5 hexes away. And if this unit in U2 just routes back to this leader here in T1, that's not going to help this unit whatsoever, because it can't end up in hex T1, because it would be getting closer to a known enemy unit. Now remember, just because he moves behind the building and can't see this unit anymore, does not matter. He still knows that that unit's there, so he cannot get decrease the distance to a known enemy unit. Once you know of a unit, you know it throughout the route process. So of course, moving that unit into that hex, not a very good option for the German player, because of course it's not going to get him anything. A better position for the German player, of course, would be to route this unit in U2 back into T1 and then into S1, because remember, once you enter your destination hex, As long as you move into an adjacent wood or building hex, you can do that as long as you have enough movement factors left. And of course, you're not moving closer to a known enemy unit, blah, blah, blah. So, better move for the German player is to actually route through this hex, past the leader, into that hex back here in S1. This unit at that point could then declare, okay, I am going to route, and he can route into S2. Now he is moving into an open hex, but fortunately again for the German player, because of all the TEMs and everything around, he is actually not going to receive any interdiction, and he can continue moving, costing 2 movement factors to move in that hex. And at that point, he can finish his route in that hex. And then during the advance phase again, the German player can take the leader and move it in that hex. One thing I do want to cover before I move, let me move these guys back to their original situation here. When this unit routes into U2 and goes into that hex, the leader cannot at that point say, okay, I want to go with him, and then go with him. He could not route like that. You must start in the hex and that the unit is broken in, and you must continue. So if the leader was with this unit, he could route with that unit through that hex into the other hex. But if you are in a hex the unit routes through, it will not matter. You cannot route with that unit. Oops, come on, get on there. So if the unit routes into T1 and then into S1, the leader can't then say, oh, okay, I'm going to go with them. But fortunately for the German player, like I said, when he does this, he ends up routing this unit up here. It's not getting any closer to any known enemy units. He's following all the rules. And then, of course, with the advance phase coming up, the German player is then going to advance this leader into an adjacent hex, which would be this one, obviously. And you can see that at the end of the route phase here for the German player, we have some broken units with the leader, which is good. We have some more broken units with a leader, which is good. We would, of course, advance this leader into that hex during the advance phase. We look at this hex, broken units with a leader in that hex. And we have broken units in a leader hex. And we have broken units in a leader hex. Unfortunately for the German player, there's not much he can do about this unit down here in H10. I don't even know why it's down there to begin with. But crazy move got him down there, whatever. But this unit's going to be, it's going to be many days before it recovers because it's all by itself, no leader to help it. It's surrounded by American units. Who knows what's going to happen to it? So that's a bad, bad situation. But fortunately for the rest of the turn for the German player, he has managed to get all of his broken units into hexes with his leaders. And of course, remember, all of these broken units would have DM counters on them. So when they did try to rally, of course, they are going to get the +4 die roll modifier. One thing I do want to note in this hex in Y8, I know we've run past our time, but this is important. The leader in that second unit over that has the boxed morale on the back of his counter, it is he does have self-rally capabilities. That means that he can attempt to rally himself, but in this case, if he's with a good order leader, he will not be self-rallying, which is actually can be advantageous because when you are self-rallying, you take a +1 die roll modifier. So in this case, the unit will not receive the +1 die roll modifier because he will not be self-rallying. He'll be being rallied by the 7-0 leader. Let's say during the process, during the next rally phase, this unit then would try to rally itself first, and let's say he succeeds in rallying himself, he will then become full, and if he had a modifier, let's say he was an 8-1 leader, let's see, can we promote him really quickly or not? There we go. Let's say he was an 8-1 leader. Let's go ahead and break him really quickly again. At this point, whoops, get off there. When it was the rally phase, the German player, of course, is going to rally the leader first. or try to. He is not going to self-rally because he has a good order leader in his hex with him. So he is going to receive a +1 modifier for being in a TEM hex that gives you a bonus on your rally attempts. And he's going to have a +4 modifier because he has a DM counter on him. So he's basically going to be a +3 to his dice roll. Let's assume that he does rally. He rolls a 1-2 on his dice, which is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 is less than or equal to his rally, so he becomes good again. At that point forward, he can then assist with his modifier to any of the other units that are going to be, in fact, I will put this on here so we can keep track. So any other units that are going to be rallied. So at that point, this unit here is getting rallied, and he's in a TEM of woods, so he's going to get a -1 TEM, die roll modifier. I'm sorry, DEM. And he's going to receive another -1 because of this leader, and he's going to get +4 because of the DM counter. So his total is going to be +2 to his dice roll. So if this unit rolls 6 and or less, he will rally at that point, and the same thing for this guy. So having your leaders rally can help you then all of a sudden be able to rally any other units in their hex. If this leader had not gone over there, let me show you another quick example here. Let's break this guy. This is the original setup we had here where this leader was in this hex. And instead of advancing this guy into that hex, let's assume the German player decides, nope, I don't want to advance him. I just want to keep him right there. At that point, when it comes time, this unit can try to self-rally, which gives him a +1 modifier. He gets a -1 because of the woods, and he gets a +4 because of the DM counter. So he's going to have a +4 to his dice roll. If he does not make his rally, then none of these guys are going to be able to try it, because the only way these two units are going to be able to do it, try a rally attempt, is if there's a good order leader in his hex. So the German player has to decide, is it more important to keep this leader here or move it in there and allow everybody to try and rally. So there we go. There's our last bit on comprehensive rally attempt, talking about some of the other rules that are associated with it, and hopefully some more strategy and thought process that should go in. What you should be thinking about, where's your target hex that all your broken units can end up? Where are your leaders located that are going to help these guys recover and rally? Where is the hexes that are going to be closest to you, that are going to give you the positive or the -1 terrain modifier, the woods, the buildings, the trenches, the pillboxes, anything that's going to help your guys get back to the battlefield. And hopefully throughout this 4 or 5 part series just on rallying, we've covered it. We now understand it. We have a thought process we're going into the rally or the route phase with, when we're not actually thinking about routing our units. We're following the routing rules, but we're actually thinking about rallying. We're trying to figure out what can we do to get these guys back into the game and back being unbroken and back to full good units. So hopefully this explains the rally and the route process from the last few episodes, and we now understand the basic concepts. I'm not going to go through the American turn. I think we're just they'll have the same things they're going to try to do. The Americans have a slight advantage in that they know that next turn is their turn, so they're going to get one free field promotion where a unit that's not able to self-rally can then self-rally. So this unit, say, up here in BB0, which doesn't have any leader near it, and of course it would probably have a DM counter on it, it is going to get a free rally attempt, a self-rally attempt. Now, of course, it's going to be hard because you're self-rallying, you're going to get a +1. It's in open terrain, so he's not going to get a terrain -1 modifier. He's going to get a +4 for the DM counter, so he's going to be a total of +5. So this unit is going to have to roll a 2 or a 3 just to rally. So maybe he might find a different unit that might be better, or try to get a leader back over into that hex, or route this unit into a hex that's going to give him some terrain modifier of a -1. So hopefully this covers rallying and routing and understanding, good process of thinking about what we should be doing, where we should go, and what our best situation and best position that you're going to get your units into to rally them. Well, we'll see you in the next episode, and thanks for watching.